Welcome back to Ken Michaels Radio. Thanks to all of you for watching. And here on my channel, as you know, I interview a lot of people in the Beatle world, Beatle podcasters, authors, musicians. And we have a guest on our show who's been with us before. And he is the co-producer of the new tribute to the Ram album called Ram On, which I finally got my physical copy in the mail
Nice.
today. Up until now, it's been all MP3s I've been listening to of the Ram On album. And along with Denny Seiwell, he co-produced this album in which every single song from the Ram album, as well as the single from those sessions, Another Day and A Woman Oh Why, they're all lovingly covered by lots of independent artists, and it's a real treat to listen to. And anyway, we welcome back Fernando Perdomo to our show.
Hello, everybody.
The last time that I spoke with Fernando, I told him about one of the ideas that I have on my channel, which is the Fab Five concept. And that's when I asked my guests to name 5 albums, one from the Beatles, one from each of the solo Beatles, that happen to be the albums that you listen to the most from each at the moment, your
Perfect.
go-to album, so to speak. And to be specific, I'm not asking for what you think is the best album from each or your favorite. There could happen to be a particular album that for some reason right now you're in the mood to listen to more than the others. So Fernando wanted to participate in this idea. He thought it was a cool idea. So I'm curious to know, I'm going to mix it all up in an order that you're not expecting.
All right.
But first we're going to
Start with
start.
the best solo records first.
Saving
Best
that
of the
for
Beatles.
You know, I bought that as a kid, and boy, was I fuming when I played it.
I mean, dude, you can't sue. It's technically best of the Beatles, you know?
You could play around with that last name. You know, it's the perfect last name to work with.
Well, the family reunion should have been called All the Best.
True.
What?
All right, so let's start with John Lennon. What would be your go-to album right now?
Let's get all the ranting and raving out then. John Lennon, the eternal complaining Beatle, the one, the snarkiest one, and the one that you know, in the end, unfortunately, we lost him. So his you know, I was only 3 months old when he got shot and died, and you know, that's one of the biggest robberies of the world, that he was taken away from us right as he was finally getting himself together and really going deep into his solo career. Because I really feel that if he would have lived, we would have gotten some of his best music. He was starting to get super inspired, and proof is in the pudding is that, you know, man, I mean, Double Fantasy, people lose their mind over Plastic Ono Band and Imagine, and they're great records.
Yeah.
But as a producer, as a sonic painter, I feel like those records are underproduced, especially Plastic Ono Band, because, okay, there's something to it. It's very dry. It's very kind of in your face. You could close your eyes and imagine this, like, this situation. But I like production. And I especially love Double Fantasy's production, because I feel like for the first time ever, he really spent time on painting a sonic picture. And him and Jack Douglas worked really well. And it was just a beautiful sound. And it's some of my favorite players of all time. I mean, you know, freaking Tony Levin, Andy Newmark, Earl Slick. Some of the keyboard stuff is really beautiful. Like when they stripped it down, I wasn't actually as impressed. You know, there's lots of different opinions on remixes. Some records should be remixed, but some records, you know, I grew up with this record and I grew up loving it. And there's something beautifully 1980 about it. And that's my birth year. So it's like, you know, the sound of the drums, the bass sound, the general vibe is great. But let's face it, man. One of the things that sucks the most about John Lennon records is, you know, the fact that he hands over songs, entire, multiple songs to Yoko. And bless her heart, I'm not a Yoko basher, but man, if it wasn't for Yoko's songs, I just wonder what other songs, like stuff that ended up on Milk and Honey, that would have ended up making Double Fantasy the perfect John Lennon record, because I don't really feel like there is a perfect John Lennon record. But Double Fantasy is the one that I go to the most, because, man, when it's on, it's on. That record is John at his best. And I still get chills. Watching the Wheels still blows my mind. It just everything about it. Beautiful Boy, Just Like Starting Over, Woman, that's in some ways, it was kind of cool that John took time off to raise Sean and then came back, instead of just continuing on that one a year thing. And he really saved up some good stuff for this record. And it just blows my mind. My favorite John Lennon song of all time, though, is Number 9 Dream, but still. And I feel like Number 9 Dream was the beginning of the production, where it's like that was starting to give us that Double Fantasy sound. But it's all about Double Fantasy to me. That's my favorite John Lennon record, and that's the one that has stood the test of time.
Can I backtrack a bit here?
Yeah.
Some of the things that you were saying. First of all, you're talking about how much production is so important to you sonically when you listen to an album.
Yeah.
And the Plastic Ono Band album, the whole purpose of it was it to be bare and raw and in your face.
Yes.
That's what John was going for.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that didn't attract you as part of.
No, you know what? I've revisited that album a bunch of times, and I owned it since I was a kid. And it was just, there was something about it that was off-putting to me. And listening to it again now, like a couple months ago, I hate to use the word bored, but I don't feel it. I just don't feel it. I don't feel any emotion. I feel like it's just like, okay, I feel the way I feel when I see a great artist performing bare acoustic. Sometimes it's just like, okay, I like albums where every song brings in a new sonic element. I feel like that record is, how do I explain it? Sepia tone, it's like, doesn't really grow for me. And I'll get a lot of, look, I've gotten into heated debates about this.
Mm-hmm.
There was a guy who randomly, as I was making the Ram On record with Denny, I had posted something about the remix of All Things Must Pass, that's coming out soon, but they had released the All Things Must Pass single.
Right.
I said it was great, but I'm still so attached to the original version, and it's a great record, and it's arguably the best Beatles solo record. And this guy's like, well, you're wrong. The best solo Beatles record was Plastic Ono Band. And I'm like, and then somebody else said, no, the best Beatles solo record is Ram. And then he went off about how Ram sucks and that there's only one good song. So I didn't really get to ask that guy to be on the record. But it was really interesting because he was going off on how Plastic Ono Band is the greatest Beatles solo record and, one of the greatest albums of all time. And look, it's a great record and there's some beautiful moments. But yeah, I don't know. There's something about it that doesn't perk my ears up the way that Double Fantasy does, the way that a lot of Mind Games does, the way Wells and Bridges does, and some of Imagine. And I always felt like he was painting in such light colors that I always thought I like. Look, there's some underproduced records that are really really cool, like stuff by the band and stuff by some of the folk stuff that I dig. But there's something just wooden about that record to me that just doesn't really perk my ears up. But for me, it's Double Fantasy, and I have to
Okay.
stick to just
I'm just
the
I'm
one
just
that
trying to
kills me.
understand your point of view. It doesn't matter whether I agree or not, because
No, it's fine.
I love all of John's solo work, but I think some people probably feel, oh, it's, and this is a commonly thought opinion, that I think just about everybody recognizes Plastic Ono Band as a masterpiece, but you have to be in the mood to listen to an album like that.
Oh yeah,
Something so deeply personal. And I would think that, if everything is stripped down to just guitars and drums and bass and a little bit of piano, well, half the album has piano, it's a much more intimate experience. Just like listening to Unplugged, an unplugged performance is. So I think that it achieved that, but I guess you didn't feel that production wise.
yeah. But what's crazy is that I guess I like the unplugged comment because, and I've loved a lot of unplugged stuff, but even that doesn't have the same restraint to me. Maybe the word is restraint. Maybe the word is simplicity. Something simplistic about the performances on that record. That may be a good thing because the focus is on John and the songs.
Mhm.
But I feel like I don't know. I don't know what could have been done to make that album different. It just doesn't hit me the same way. It's all good.
At the risk of sounding very repetitive, and I bring this up, I think, far too much in my videos, we seem to be living in a time when people want simple production and not very polished, slick production and layered production. And I think some people now might think that Double Fantasy is too slick for them, you know?
Good point.
Um,
Good
and
point. Because there's two sides to every coin. Because there's the what is great and what is aged best. Because
uh-huh,
that might be a thing, is that record may have aged better than other records.
which one?
Uh, Plastic Ono Band
Okay.
has aged better. Same way Ram has aged better than some of the other McCartney stuff. That's because we've talked about how the thing that makes Ram so supreme, especially 50 years on the line, is that it didn't have any synthesizers, drum machines, disco beats. It was very much a record that did not have any gimmicks. So it's aged very well.
Well,
Same thing goes with Plastic.
this whole concept of what's aged well, it's just so subjective. And we have no idea in the future how any of these records are going to age.
Hmm.
For all we know, 50 years from now, people might be saying Flowers in the Dirt is the best album that Paul's ever
Yeah,
done. Nobody knows. So, it's all relative to the time that we're talking.
yeah,
So,
sure.
but the other thing you said about Yoko being on half the album, and I lost your video there.
Oh,
Okay,
there you go.
you're back.
Sorry.
Okay. So that kind of ruins it for you because the
It
whole
doesn't ruin
idea
it.
was,
It's just it's tough. I have to be in a certain mood to not skip, and I don't feel like there's a single John Lennon record that I don't skip. It's just me. I have skips, and it's tough because there's barely ever any skips on Beatles records for me. There's barely any skips on Wings records, Paul McCartney records, But there's always something with John Lennon records that made me skip and made me make comps and stuff.
mm,
Um, and look, it's what he wanted to do, so I can't blame him for that. But when I feel like listening to John Lennon, I feel like the songs on Double Fantasy are the ones that draw me in the most.
okay.
That's just me. That's just me. It's very personal.
All I'm trying to do is understand, your
Oh
point
yeah,
of view.
man.
That's all. I'm not disagreeing with you. But
All
the
good.
one thing about Double Fantasy is that it's kind of meant to be a dialogue between the two of them.
Yeah.
Did you feel like with Some Time in New York City, did you skip over the Yoko songs too? Was it difficult to listen to going back and forth between the
That's
two
a
of them?
record I've never been able to get into.
Hmm.
Um, I don't want to sound like a hater, but that whole Elephant's Memory band, the live concert, I see what John was going for,
Hmm.
but the bar is set so high with Paul's musicians that it just seems like, you know, what's with all the clams on the bass? What's with all the weird saxophone stuff? What's with all the damn saxophone? Stop it with the saxophone, John. You know, it kills whatever gets you through the night for me. I'm just not a sax guy.
Oh, oh, okay.
I'm
Oh,
not a
that's
sax.
such a big part of that song. Wow.
I know, but God, it could have been. It. That's the thing. As a musician, I I have an opinion, and I
Hmm.
have very strong opinions over stuff because I didn't go to school for this. My record collection trained me to be a producer. And what my record collection taught me was what are things you should do, what are things you should avoid, what are things that I like, what are things I don't, and stuff like harmonica and you know truly like just hokey sometimes instruments, and sax could get very hokey to me. And I recently had a discussion about the live the New York concert reissue that happened in the 80s where the drums were replaced with a drum machine, and the sax is super loud, and it's just like, man, Paul did it right. In some ways, George, that 74 tour would have been incredible if his voice would have held up. But and I love all of Ringo's all-star stuff. I just feel like John live could have been so much better with the right musicians. If he would have gone on the road with the Double Fantasy band, that would have been amazing. I would have loved to have heard Tony Levin, Andy Newmark, that rhythm section backing up John on all the great stuff,
Hmm.
and a handful of Beatles stuff and whatever
Yeah.
covers he felt like doing. That would have been amazing. And I feel like that might have been something that we would have gotten in 82, 83.
Well, there was talk about the tour like it was going to happen. Well, after Milk and Honey was finished.
Yeah,
So yeah.
that would have been
So,
great.
oh yeah. I mean, the tragedy of John Lennon. This, my God. I mean, beyond how I felt about how Yoko was destroyed and Sean
Yeah,
destroyed and Julian and the other Beatles and the world. We don't know what direction musically John would have went into.
yeah.
He
And
listened to all different styles of music. So,
also the inevitable Beatles reunion.
well, I don't know if that would have ever happened. None of us knows for sure.
Maybe not a show, but all four of them in one room together, speaking to cameras. You know,
Well,
all
I
four of them
believe
playing
the Beatles
acoustic guitar.
anthology, if the
Yeah.
Beatles anthology, if the three of them got together for that, if John was alive, I believe it would have happened. But
Well, I have a feeling that they would have done something like Live Aid.
I don't know. We're going down a rabbit hole here because
Yeah, I
that's
know.
a whole show to
Beautiful thing
itself.
about music. Look, I love talking about music.
Yeah.
I love all the different passions that erupt when it comes to talking about what you love, what you don't love, what could have been, fantasy. Um, uh, it's a beautiful thing because it gets our brains working,
Hmm.
and we're passionate about Beatles, we're passionate about music, and that's a good thing. It's a really good thing
Absolutely. But I
because
also think,
anybody talking about the Beatles right now, it's a good thing.
to me, if John was alive today, we would have had so much more music from him. And I just feel in my heart he would have worked with Julian and Sean,
Yeah,
and that could have been amazing to itself.
yeah,
Beyond any Beatles reunion. Just the fact that he would work with his sons and be close with them. I could see
And
that happening, and it's a tragedy that never happened.
I
So,
could see him collaborating with a lot of people too. Like
hmm
I think he would have been very active in activism and music, and I think he would have done some great collaborations, kind of in a way that like you know Elton John and stuff like that. I
David
think
Bowie.
David Bowie,
Mm,
perfect example.
mm.
That because he loved collaborating and he loved people, and I think he would have been a driving force of music, you know. But we'll never know.
I
But
know.
luckily, as I tell all my clients, record your music, release your music, because it's going to outlive you all.
Hmm. True. True.
So we're lucky. We're lucky that we got 8 or 9 records from him. With it could have been more, but we're lucky that we got tons of music, and it's always going to influence us all. And if there's one thing about him leaving us in the '80s is we didn't get any rappy, weird disco, techno '80s stuff. Because all the other Beatles, they went down that digital rabbit hole. You know, and you know they tried.
Well, you don't
They
know
did.
with John because I know I've heard it said John did like disco.
Hmm.
And Yoko has said that he would have loved rap.
Yeah,
So you just don't know with John.
yeah,
And I certainly have no problem with the techno world. I love a lot of that 80s stuff. And as you know, I love Press to Play as an album.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
I had no problem with it.
That's cool.
All right, move on to how about Ringo?
Ringo. My first concert ever was Ringo and the All Stars, 1991, 92. That was the band with Timmy Capello, Todd Rundgren, Joe Walsh, Burton Cummings, Nils Lofgren, Dave Edmonds,
Hmm.
Zach Starkey on drums.
Yep.
And bless Ringo's heart. He's he's it's very funny. Like I'll never forget when I saw him when Liverpool 8 was out, and he says, "This is a new song off my album, Liverpool 8. Please buy it. I've got boxes and boxes of it in my garage. I need to get rid of them." He's very aware that of all the Beatles, he was the one that had the toughest road to climb when it came to, you know, being on his own, because his limited songwriting and just his general vibe. It's like, okay, this is going to be the interesting one. And let's just face it, Ringo is his masterpiece. That's the one where everything came together. Now, the one that I listened to recently that still blows my mind is
Hmm.
Time Takes Time.
Okay.
And that was the one that was out when I went to that first concert.
Hmm.
And it's got some amazing stuff on it. But let's just face it, as far as a complete statement, Ringo's the one, because it has collaborations with all 4 Beatles. It's got Mark Bolan. It's got all the really great production, and it's the one where everything really came together. There's great moments on Goodnight Vienna. There's
Hmm.
great moments on Bad Boy. There's great moments on Ringo the Fifth. There's great moments on Retrovature. I checked them all out,
Uh-huh.
but every time I listened to a Ringo album, it was like, okay, there's a lot of some forgettable moments on these records, but Ringo is so charming that he could pull it off. Always pulls it off. But Ringo is the one that like really stirs some deep emotion,
Hmm.
and there's some great moments. Um, but Time Takes Time I feel his strongest record in the last 20 years or 30 years or whatever.
It's 30.
You know, it's a cool record.
Oh, tell me about it. To me, I've always said that after the Ringo album, he put out a lot of good to very good albums, but not great albums. The next great album to me was Time Takes Time.
Yeah,
And then I also feel that the 3 albums that followed that Mark Hudson
yeah.
produced with him are all, they are amongst his best. So Time Takes Time was the start of this Renaissance period for Ringo, where ever since then his albums have been very good. After Mark Hudson, very good, but I wouldn't necessarily say great. But they all have very worthwhile tracks on them. So no, I agree with you. Time takes time. How do you feel about Ringo's work with Mark Hudson?
Really cool. Really cool. Mark did a great job with him. I need to get a little more familiar with those.
Mm,
But look, that's the thing about Ringo is that he's never um, he's never been taken too seriously. So obviously, oh, another Ringo album. Oh, this is cute. This will be nice. I always wish that he, I don't know. It's tough to be in his head.
hmm
I don't think he ever felt that people would ever take him seriously. So he always has a lighthearted approach to making records. There's no, let's just say all of his records are the opposite of Plastic Ono Band. There's no extreme depth there. And there's a lot of fun, that's the thing about Ringo. He's always been the fun Beatle. He's
hmm
always been the one that laughs at himself the most. He's always been the one that's had the least amount of ego, But damn, I love his voice. I love his dedication to his art. And, man, it's always fun to hear a new Beatles, a new Ringo record. So bless his heart.
Yeah.
But as far as Desert Island Ringo, it's Ringo to me, Um, compilations help too because there's stuff on other records that blows my mind. But as far as one record, it's got to be Ringo to me. But
Okay.
Time Takes
But
Time is a close second.
all right. So your go-to would be the Ringo album.
The go-to is Ringo album,
Okay.
but Time Takes Time is special to me.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with what you said because the Ringo album is a great album, and you got participation from the other Beatles on
Yeah.
there, and no doubt about it, when you even if you knew all of Ringo's albums, you'd have to agree that Photograph is one of the best songs he's ever recorded.
Oh my God.
And
Don't go easy. Freaking 6 o'clock in the morning. Man, coolest thing about Ringo though too is that
mm,
that booklet with all the cool
oh,
drawings.
the Klaus Forman.
I'm a kid,
Yeah.
so I'm a kid, and I buy this record, and my inner kid feels more like a kid every time I look at that packaging
Mm,
because there was just so much to take in. All the cool drawings, all the people on the cover. What a cool cover, by the way.
yeah,
The
just
the
like Sergeant
album,
Pepper in a way.
yes, the
Yeah.
album with the star and the oh, you know, that record was always special to me, and it's always going to be special to me. And
Yeah.
I probably, out of all of them, I think I'm more excited to listen to that record right now than anything else because it's a fun, great record. It's just so well done.
Yeah.
You know.
I'll just say that for me, probably the most interesting part of Ringo's career is how he's developed as a songwriter. And
Yeah.
even though he wrote a lot, well, maybe not a lot, but a significant number of songs with Vidi Ponce in particular in the 70s, from Vertical Man on, he's co-written almost every song on his
Yeah.
albums. So to see him develop as a songwriter, though we don't know to what degree he contributed in every song, that alone is what I find the most interesting. And all these different collaborations that he's done with all the different people after Mark Hudson.
Yeah.
So, but if you get a chance, do listen to the Mark Hudson ones because I think in terms of compositions, it's they're very solid albums all the way through. And the musicians and the Roundheads really work well with Ringo, but I think Mark was really striving for a Beatle sound. You know,
Oh yeah.
this was his wet dream, so to speak, to work
Yeah.
with Ringo. And yeah, but they are all solid albums. Vertical
That's
Man,
great.
Ringo Rama, and Choose Love.
Yes. Very cool.
All right, let's stick the Beatles right in the middle.
Oh, never heard of them. Um, well, the album that sticks with me the most forever is going to be Abbey Road. The album that changed my life was White Album. The album that I go back to the most often, almost, is Sergeant Pepper, because that one, look, that's the thing about the Beatles, is that they were a constant companion of my life since I was six years old,
Hmm.
when I first heard the Beatles and when I first got obsessed with the Beatles. 1987, Beatles 20 Greatest Hits, first cassette I owned. That's the one that my mom's cassette of the blue and red collections was the first thing I found, first thing I got into.
Hmm.
Beatles 20 Greatest Hits. The thing about the Beatles is that, again, it's all about the mood you're in. It's all about the vibe you're in. But the one with everything is the White Album. I have extreme memories about listening to that record, and it's influenced everything I do. But as far as a one album, I don't think I could live without Abbey Road. Um, and it's the one that gives me the deepest feels.
Hmm.
I, you know, that side two, that is just pure bliss.
Hmm.
Something. Here Comes the Sun. Um, you know, it's such a special record to me. But the White Album is mind blowing, and so it would be between the White Album and Abbey Road, but Sergeant Pepper. So my high school had a rock ensemble program. One of the first, well, it was the first ever rock ensemble program in high school. It started in 1972, and we did Sergeant Pepper's as a show. And learning that album note for note, it's like the old term is like, oh, that drink made me grow chest hair. Making that, doing that, I felt like I really became a musician learning that album, note for note, playing it with a bunch of other 14, 15, 16-year-olds. So those are the three albums that I always go back to. But every album has a beautiful thing about it. I recently listened to Beatles for Sale for the first time in a while, and it's just like all the feels came back. Rubber Soul, Revolver. Man, something about that freaking Yellow Submarine soundtrack blows my mind. And I'm a later Beatles guy, but I
Yeah.
love all the early Beatles stuff. And there's just, it's overwhelming. So it's definitely tough. But Abbey Road, I can't live without Abbey Road. I think I could live without. I mean, that's a hard question to ask, but Abbey Road, Abbey Road, Abbey Road.
It's really tough, because every Beatles album is wonderful in its own way. But the way that I phrase it, the first time we did this, you're about to go on vacation. You're going to pack your car. You don't have time to think. You go into your CD collection. You got one Beatles album to pick. What's it going to be?
Let's talk about this, because I used to be like that.
Yeah.
Go on vacation. What tapes am I going to bring? What? Wait, the world has changed, and you got to think about the new generation
Hmm.
where they have any song at their fingertips.
Right.
Not that, and it's even worse than the way it used to be with iPods. It's like, oh well, I've got an iPod, 160 gigabyte iPod, and I've got all my entire record collection on me. I can listen to any song I want. I can put it on random and hear any song I want. Well, now it's even worse, because it's like, hey, have you heard of this obscure album from 1971 that was only printed in Brazil? Hi, I found it on YouTube. The hunt is no longer a thing.
Yeah.
So the whole concept of packing only a few CDs, it's a beautiful fantasy. But these days, you can listen to any song you want, and it's always going to be available. So, but
I'm just presenting this as an idea.
I love the
You
idea.
know,
I love the idea.
listen, most of the time when I listen to the Beatles, I listen the way that I program my radio show, every little thing.
Mhm.
Everything is a mix.
Yeah,
I rarely listen to an album from start to finish.
yeah,
A lot of solo albums, yes. Rarely do I ever listen to a Beatles album from start to finish. Everything
gotcha.
is a mix. And I'm used
Yeah,
to hearing it that way. I like mixing music from different decades. That's how my ears are trained now, so that I think of it all as one big body of work. But I also like the idea that each album was its own concept. It's what the artist put out at a certain time. They put them out in the order that they did, the sequencing that they did, that each one is, a work of art in its own way. So if you were in the mood to listen to any Beatles album as much as you might want to hear the whole catalog,
Mhm.
what would it be? There are plenty of times when I just say, I want Revolver right now,
Yeah.
you know, without thinking. So that's what I'm trying to get at into the minds of people that I interview.
Yes.
So you just told me three albums that you love to death for various reasons.
Yes.
But if you could pick one of those,
Abbey Road.
well, Abbey Road.
Abbey Road.
And
It's
it's more,
tough.
it's,
And which one
it's,
of your children are you going to save?
I,
You know, it's,
I know, I didn't say this was easy.
I know. Oh, this is not easy. This is not easy. Not at all.
And also when you're dealing with someone like McCartney, who's got over 30 albums, and you love so many of them as I do. I mean, there's over
Mhm.
10 that I consider to be great. How do you pick?
Yeah.
It's
No,
more
it's impossible.
it's what mood you're in.
Do you
Sometimes you
want to?
want,
You want to go straight into that because that's racking my brain. I'm losing hair over that one.
you want to do Paul next? Sure.
Thrillington. No. So no. Here's the deal. Ram is my favorite album of all time, pretty much. You
Uh-huh.
know, it's impossible to beat. But why am I gonna? I mean, making Ram on has definitely tested my love for Ram because, as I said, I've become a little rammed out because these songs have now become a completely different monster to me because of intrinsically like putting this album together. I've heard these songs way too much at this point. I need a break.
Uh-huh.
The album that I'm going to pick is Tug of War because as much as I love Wings, as much as I love all Paul, I feel like Tug of War was his finest, aside from Ram, was his finest album. As far as no skips, as far as bringing back great memories, as far as just being a perfect record to me.
Hmm.
It's a perfect record.
I think so. Yeah.
And it's so cool. It's so good. And again, the production is spectacular. What Paul did, this is reuniting with George Martin. These great musicians, the great sound of the Montserrat studio, Steve Gadd, freaking Stanley Clarke, Denny Lane is involved somehow,
Hmm.
some early Eric Stewart stuff, some great, great playing. Man, Paul's solo on Dress Me Up as a Robber,
Hmm.
sorry, the classical guitar thing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Um, Someone Who Cares, another classic song that blows my mind.
Hmm.
Another great solo on that. And just so many great moments. And that record gives me so many great memories listening to it as a kid and going, my God, I hope I make a record like this one day, that I could just smile the entire, it's a 45-minute smile to me.
Hmm.
And it's just so good. And again, classic Paul. It's a journey. It has ebbs and flows. It has extreme emotional moments like,
Here
freaking,
today.
yeah, Here Today,
Yeah.
which is beyond,
Mm.
Wanderlust, which is epic. And then there's fun stuff like ballroom dancing,
Yep.
it's like, it's great. And I even love, look, man, people love to hate on Ebony and Ivory, but that's a masterpiece. The
Thank you.
production on that is a masterpiece.
Yeah.
And it's just beautiful. And that's one of the greatest duets of all time, and him and Stevie had two great moments on that record. And
Hmm.
What's That You're Doing? I mean, come on. That's I'm surprised people haven't discovered that song and made more of a deal of it because it's a very unique song in the Beatles catalog, being so out of the ordinary for Paul,
Hmm.
and because it's totally in Stevie's, sweet spot.
Funk. Yeah.
But Paul kicks ass on it, because that's the thing about Paul, is that he's put in bizarre situations, like cut me some slack, where it's like he's
Yeah.
screaming with Foo Fighters and stuff. He's amazing when he's taken out of his comfort zone, or decides that he wants to role play, like "Oh Woman, Oh Why," where he's like, "Hey, let's play some Zeppelin type stuff," or Scream, or any of the Fireman stuff like that. It's like, it's great that Paul could wear so many hats. So again, this is very, you if you screenshot me talking about Paul and screenshot me talking about John, I probably have a completely different face on. Paul is just always going to be just, man. I mean, it's no contest here. He's the one that had the most fun making solo records, and you could tell. It's just his superpower. He's just got superpowers. And even McCartney 3, it's like he's still got it. Still got it.
It never ends, and he's so adaptable. That's the key word to just about any style of
But
music.
when it ends, he's leaving us with a massive discography that's never going to leave us. It's never going to leave us. There's never going to be a month that's going to go by without me listening to a McCartney record all the way through.
It's never a day that goes by when I don't hear some McCartney music of some kind.
That's
But
beautiful.
yeah, Tug of War is a masterpiece. There's no doubt about it. And I'd like to see it get more love through
Oh,
the years.
well, the
We'll see.
anniversary is coming up.
Yeah, but one thing I found with all these box sets coming out is that it's made people reassess some of these albums. But I think the albums that have benefited the most have been the early McCartney ones, from
Yes.
McCartney through Red Rose Speedway.
Yes.
There's a lot of people that are now discovering, hey, he put out some really really good stuff before Band on the Run. It didn't just
Yeah.
start with Band on the Run.
Well, I'm
So
excited to see what London Town goodies come out, and stuff like that. That's another record that always is close to my heart.
hmm.
I could go on, because
Oh, I know.
there's beautiful things about every McCartney record, but Tug of War is my choice.
Okay.
Coming from Ram Guy.
Hey, we can love albums for so many different reasons.
Yeah.
And we all have different tastes, and we all look for different things in music, and certain songs can touch you in ways that other people can hear the same song and they don't hear what you're hearing.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just trying to explain it all. That's all I'm trying to
Yep.
do here. So we are left with George.
And it's a similar situation to Paul, because the same way that the unanimous crowd says Ram is the greatest McCartney record, the unanimous crowd, especially this year, is going to always go with All Things Must Pass, which is a very, very special record to anybody that's heard it.
Hmm.
That's a record that is a lifetime obsession, and it it's magical. And what's funny is that from a production standpoint, it's flawed. It's got issues. Too much reverb, too dense. The mix is strange. Some decisions that were made kind of boggle me. But I've gotten used to it, to the point where hearing the remix was a little jarring to me, because I'm used to the soup, what I call the soup, because it's a
Yeah.
soupy record. It's there's stuff underneath the broth that will make you happy because you spoon it out,
Hmm.
but it's not there to see. And it's no wonder that the instrumentation issue, and like people who did what. Look, man, when you're in that soup, it's going to be hard for yourself to even recognize when you're one of 15 acoustic guitars strumming, or a
Hmm.
vibraphone somewhere, or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's crazy. But the same way that being rammed out made me take Tug of War to the top, I am going to mention my favorite George Harrison record, aside from All Things Must Pass, and the
Okay.
one that I turn to the most, Gone Troppo.
Wow. Very interesting. I love the album too. I think it's extremely underrated. Why do you love that album?
Because I'll never forget the first time I heard that album. And it was when I was maybe 9 years old. I stepped into a thrift store with my parents, and it was like a mom and pop thrift store,
Hmm.
and they had Troppo on, and it was the song "That's the Way It Goes,"
Okay.
and I lost my mind because of the guitar playing,
Hmm.
because of the sound, because of the warm hug of the vocals, and I was just like, okay, whatever this is, I need it. I found a copy of Gone Troppo at Yesterday Today Records in Miami that was sealed,
Hmm.
because this is a record that gets bashed bad, and it's
Hmm.
like somebody bought it, never even opened it. I remember that. I remember being so excited to buy this Virgin record when I was 9, unwrapping it, putting it on the turntable, no surface noise, no cracks, no pops,
Hmm.
and going, there's something really cool about this record. And it's still, you know what this record is to me? It's a rainy day record. It was raining the day I heard it. And it's like, it's a record that I like to put on rainy days because it's so laid back,
Hmm.
and every instrument in the production is a warm hug. I like the drum sound too. It's
Uh-huh.
really, really interesting because it's like a combination. It's like almost like they there's a little bit of Simmons going on, but there's a little bit of like, it's just everything is just thud, and it's great. And the keyboard work is fantastic. Some of the guitar playing is some of George's best, and I feel like it's a very special record to me. And just I have no shame in saying that, Gone Troppo to me is my second favorite George Harrison record, and the one I go back to the most.
Very interesting. I worked
Team
at a record
Troppo,
store. What's that?
Team Troppo.
Okay. I worked at a record store, the chain Record World in Roosevelt Field, Long Island, when that album came out.
Oh,
And it
cool.
just quietly was released. We put it on the wall. There's no promotion whatsoever. George didn't give any interviews. He fulfilled his contractual obligations, and that was it. But I
Yeah.
still think he put the effort in behind the songs. I love,
Oh, it's beautiful.
you talk about laid back. It kind of reminds me in some ways of like the George Harrison album of
It does.
1979 in that regard. But
Yes.
yeah, you feel like you're on a tropical island with him, like you're there in Hawaii with him for some of
Yeah.
these songs, and you can feel the breeze. Songs like Mystical One, you know, have that effect on me.
Hmm.
But yeah, there are certain songs that I connect to with the weather or certain memories that I have, like Blow Away. It's a
Yes.
song I always remember. I went to college at the time, and I would wake up every morning, drive my car into the parking lot at the college on Long Island, Nassau Community College, and I would hear "Blow Away" on the radio almost every morning. So I always connect that song with that time, and morning time, and seeing the sunshine, and everything else that goes along with it. So it looks like you're freezing up there, Fernando.
I'm not. I'm just
Okay.
thinking.
Okay. But yeah, I can understand where you're going, where you're coming from here. But yeah, and it's George's albums, especially the albums on his Dark Horse label, were really produced well.
Yeah.
Very crisp production. You can hear the percussion so well. Ray Cooper stuff that he was
Yeah.
doing, all the different instruments on the song Gon Troppo,
Hmm.
or on Grease, the instrumental. It's really remarkable. His stuff is so underrated, George.
Very much. And that's the thing, is that George will always be the quiet one. And but man, he when he was on, and I feel like you know his stuff, man, so beautiful, just so beautiful and so emotional, spiritual, and just, it's a warm hug. That's the
Hmm.
thing I love about it. Going back to Plastic Ono Band, it's not a hug at all. It's you got to be in the right mood, and I don't think I'm ever in that mood where I feel like, I guess Plastic Ono Band's the type of record that you should be like really depressed, or like, you know, laying in bed thinking about your life and stuff. I mean, where I'm human, I go through depression, but my coping method of depression is to distract myself with stuff that's gonna make me forget that I'm depressed. So I've never been the type of person that oh, I'm depressed, I'm gonna go listen to Skinny Puppy, or sit around and mope and listen to goth music, or whatever. No, that's the thing, is that I like to surround myself with beauty, and I like to surround myself with music that makes me feel alive. And my choices, I hope, represent the fact that that's my vibe. I mean, look, there's purpose for everything the Beatles did, and that's the beautiful thing about the Beatles, is that there's so much to digest,
Mm.
there's so much to talk about, and there's so much that one person loves press to play, another person hates it.
Hmm.
That's the beautiful thing about Beatles music, is that it's there for everyone to judge and love in their own personal way. My own personal way, these are my thoughts. You have your thoughts. We
Right.
all have our thoughts. We're all human beings, and we're all just lucky enough to be living in the same time the Beatles did. So
And our
there you go.
opinions can change too.
Yeah, of
We could be,
course. As I grow older,
yep.
you know,
If I
not everybody
interview you
loved
one
when I
year
was
from
10.
now, you might have different choices a year from now if I did the same thing with you.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, man. And there's stuff that pops up on when I'm listening to my phone on random, that I'd be like, oh, I completely forgot about that. I gotta
Mm.
go listen to that again. That's the beautiful thing about music, is that you never know when you're going to be reminded of something that you loved once, or that you never even checked out.
Yeah.
I gotta check out those records, those Ringo records that you're telling me about, the Mark Hudson ones, and I'm sure that I'll be surprised.
And one thing that I'm more grateful for than ever before is that in the case of Paul and Ringo, they never stop. They keep on recording. And someday when they're both gone, and I hope that's far ahead in the future,
Yeah.
we're just going to have more stuff to digest and to debate over and examine and assess and reassess, and
I
it'll
mean,
go
we
on
all have to,
forever.
we all have to face the fact that, yes, there will be a time that we lose Paul and Ringo, but they're the beautiful thing about it is that they've left us with all these gifts, you know,
Sure.
because, dude, the opposite is guys like Jeff Buckley that gave us nothing, one album, one and a half albums, that's true tragedy,
Hmm.
um
Buddy Holly.
Buddy Holly, you know. If it wasn't for
Yeah.
the record that I worked on, Emmett Rhodes would have been in the same category, which is three incredible albums, or four incredible albums.
Yeah.
And then, we finally brought him out and did one more. Still, damn it, man. That's the thing, is that the Beatles were very prolific. Therefore, they did have some missteps, but even the missteps could be fantastic. That's the beautiful thing.
Absolutely. Of course, we can all debate what was a misstep, but
Well, God, do
let's
we
not
have
go
to
there now.
unfinished music number 2? Oh, God. Whatever, I don't know. There's some weird stuff. There's definitely, and look, everybody's human, and that's the thing, is that when you're a Beatle, they'll put out anything,
Hmm.
so whatever, it is what it
Yeah.
is.
Okay. Well, this has been fantastic talking with you.
Thanks, Ken.
And I'm going to put up the links for Ram On. Anything that you've got that you're planning right now of your own music, or anything
Yeah,
you can talk
actually,
about?
I'm in process right now of finalizing the release for the album I'm putting out with Carmen Apiece, as
Oh,
the Apiece Perdomo project. The album is going to be called. The album's actually coming out hopefully in September or so, and the album's called Energy Overload, and it's an instrumental kind of Jeff Beck type thing. And I just put out a classical guitar album called Play, which is just classical guitar songs. And I'm working on a project with my band 9 Mile Station, with Scarlett Rivera of Bob Dylan fame on violin.
wow.
And just producing a lot of music, making stuff happen. Uh, Next year, I'm going to be back on the Cruise to the Edge, and I'm working on new music for my progressive rock project, Out to Sea. And then just hung out with Denny yesterday, and we're still talking about the possibility of making some more records, and putting the Ram On show on stage. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Let me know. I do hope, I know I said this before, I hope you continue and maybe do a wildlife next,
He's
you know.
thinking about it. He's
Yeah.
a tough nut to crack on that because, as he says, Ram was very special, and the other records are, they're great, but he doesn't look back on them the same way that we do, because he was there.
hmm But he also
But
has the memories of the whole Wings experience
oh yeah,
and the beginning of Wings. So,
oh yeah,
yeah.
wow, man, I love hanging with him because I still have to pinch myself because, again, the other day I posted a little video of me playing along to the solos on Too Many People, and
Mhm.
that was his post for McCartney's birthday. That was the only post that Denny Seiwell did for McCartney's birthday, was wishing Paul birthday by posting a video of me playing guitar.
Quite a
You know,
compliment there.
that's a huge compliment, and that's a huge thing because Denny and I have so much mutual respect for each other, and he's such a nice guy. And my God, to be there 5 feet away from Paul. Hey, I've got this new song. It's called Another Day.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, with all that's said about Wings and whether you thought it was a real band or not, outside of Paul, Linda, and Denny, when you're talking about the fourth and fifth members, they all kind of stayed there in Wings for like 3 years. But man, do they all have stories to tell
Oh
because
yeah.
Paul was so prolific and so active during that time. He did so much within 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Denny Seiwell can talk about Ram, Wildlife, Red Rose Speedway,
Yeah.
all the tours. It's incredible.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And
So,
that just reminded me. I am in Paul Sally's new book, A Little Wing, about Jimmy McCulloch.
okay.
I'm one of the people that is included in the book, talking about his influence on me. Because look, I love all Wings.
Yeah.
I also understand Denny's opinion that when he went to go see the McCulloch English band in '76, that the vibe was totally different because
Mm,
Wings was like traveling in a double decker bus, not showering, not staying in hotels,
uh-huh.
kind of a dirty hippie band, and then all of a sudden he shows up and it's like well-oiled machine. Everyone's showered, everyone's clean cut. There's horns on stage. Everyone's in suits.
Uh-huh.
But I love that, man. I mean, dude, life-changing moment was when I first saw Rock Show. VH1 had this thing called Paul McCartney Day, where they played
Yep.
nothing but Paul McCartney videos all day as a big publicity stunt for Flowers in the Dirt,
Uh-huh.
1989. And they played Rock Show, and I taped it on an 8-hour cassette. That changed my life because that's the moment I wanted to be a musician for the rest of my life.
Very interesting. That's your Ed Sullivan moment.
That's my Ed Sullivan moment.
I tell you, I was at the show at Madison Square Garden in '76. To this day, greatest concert I've ever been to.
Wow.
It's got mythical proportions now. That
When
concert.
when I played Madison Square Garden with Paulina Rubio back in 2006, all I could think about was when I got on stage and looked at the scoreboard and thinking, Wings. This is a place where Wings happened, and this is just the feeling of that.
Uh-huh.
That's the only thing that was on my mind. When I played Carnegie Hall, the only thing on my mind was Chicago Live. I think this is my Terry Kaff moment. When I thought about MSG, it was all about Wings to me. You know,
Mm,
that's the house. You know, and
very
I
nice.
still get that's why I asked you about live records, because my desert island is Wings Over America. That's
hmm
that's like that's a total desert island disc for me because it gives me all the feels. I still get excited listening to Beware My Love at the end of that,
Yeah.
Um, everything about that record gives me a smile. So
And so many of those songs I've always felt work better as a live recording than in the studio. It's really ironic, even from Band on the Run through Speed of Sound stuff and the Venus and Mars material. Letting Go, for example,
yeah.
much better live than in
Well,
than the
great point,
studio.
because I listened to Wings Over America before Band on the Run, and it ruined Band on the Run for me because I was underwhelmed by the sound of Band on the Run. And having heard, Band on the Run, Jet, Bluebird,
Yeah,
live, I was just like, oh man, these sound like demos. There's just that everything shrill. Everything that shouldn't be shrill is shrill. Everything that should be fat is thin. There's hiss, there's all, it's just, man, that Lagos studio sounded like a nightmare. So,
that's interesting. That's why you said that on our
yeah,
show on Talk More Talk, why you didn't like the production of Band on the Run. It's kind of
no,
like it's almost a similar experience to what people feel with Peter Frampton,
yeah,
that his
exactly.
studio recordings just don't have the life.
No,
It's a whole other recording when it's live. It's meant to
it's
be live.
amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much better Peter Frampton was live. And it's just that live energy. He's just, need some people need to be in front of people to finally become themselves.
Hmm.
Some say that's me too, because I'm pretty chill, but when I get on stage, I go completely nuts, but there's that energy, but man, what a great job of capturing lightning in a bottle on that Wings Over America record.
Hmm.
I don't care if it has overdubs. I don't care if they fixed everything. It's freaking great. And it's such,
Well, Denny Lane said that there wasn't that much added to it.
from what
A
I
little bit.
understand, backup vocals were all redone.
I don't know if on all the tracks.
Not on all the tracks.
Yeah,
Impossible.
yeah.
But
Most of it was as it was, from what I understand.
yeah,
Maybe
because you
some,
watch
yeah,
any of the live
yeah.
stuff, any of the bootlegs that are online, the Melbourne show and stuff like that,
Mm,
it's they didn't suck. The rumor was, oh God, they sucked, so they have to redo it all in the studio. No, man, they were
hmm.
great. They were great, and Linda held her own, man.
Yeah.
Great stuff. I mean, nothing impressed me more than watching video of her playing two synthesizers at the same time during the solo on Band on the Run. So cool,
Hmm.
so cool.
Well, we've got to do more shows together.
We will, we will. Because hey,
And
nothing's more boring than somebody that loves everything, and I don't love everything.
yeah.
I've got opinions on stuff. Because I'm 40 now, and I've spent a lot of time. I've grown into this person I am now, and I deal with having to have opinions all the time as a producer.
Hmm.
I get paid. I'll never forget this. I had one artist that said she stopped working with me because I liked everything she did. And I'm like, it's because it was fantastic. She's like, I want people to tell me I'm doing stuff wrong.
Mm.
Well, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that weird, cantankerous Phil Spector gun guy. You know, Todd Rundgren is famous for this. I'll never forget reading in Paul Myers' book about how Todd Rundgren told Andy Partridge, I'm going to go in there and sing your song the way it should be sung, and you're going to sing it the way I sing. No wonder they almost got into a fist fight.
Uh-huh.
I'm not that guy, but I'm always here to give a good opinion and to throw my soup in at them as like, what would sound really good on the song is slide guitar. What would sound really good on the song is this type of drum kit, this type of drum sound.
Uh-huh.
I'm a sonic painter, and
Mm.
these albums made me who I am. And the ones that I picked are albums that I strive to compare my production style to, you know.
You sound like you learned a bit from George Martin, who was very diplomatic and knew how to get by making suggestions without hurting feelings.
How different would have the Beatles been if they didn't have George Martin?
Oh, very different.
I mean, because any other producer would have been heavy handed. Mickey Most would have ruined them, freaking anybody in that scene would have ruined them.
Hmm.
Having a big brother type character like George Martin, who was there listening first and then talking, and providing the musical know-how that they lacked, being that classically trained musician there that could be like, don't you know what you're doing? We have no idea what we're doing.
Right.
Well, you're doing this, and this will sound good with it. So it was magic. Everything. The thing about the Beatles is everything that should have happened at the right time. And those supporting characters, Brian Epstein, Brian
All the
Epstein
engineers. Yep.
All the engineers.
Yep.
Yeah. Ken Scott, freaking Hurricane
Jeff
Smith.
Emmerich. Yep.
Jeff Emmerich.
Yep.
The thing about it is, like, again, Brian Epstein. No, they're not going to release How You Do It. They're releasing Love Me Do. That's the final straw, or we're not putting anything out. That moment changed everything. There's that short film of what if John would have quit that day, and it would have become the Paul show. Have you seen that?
No.
Which
film is that?
There's a short film. Let me look it up really quick because it's fascinating. I actually kind of want to.
Because it was the Beatles that really told George Martin, no, we don't want to do How Do You Do It. We want to do our own material.
Yeah. But it was finally Brian that finally convinced them, though. I don't know, convinced the label to take a chance on Love Me Do. I don't know. I got to look that up again. But what if John quits?
It's a real funny thing about the British invasion artists with George Martin, because between the Beatles, Billy J. Kramer, and Jerry and the Pacemakers, they all stood their ground and went for songs that George Martin didn't want them to do, or they had their own idea of what they wanted. Like, for example, Billy J. Kramer wanted Little Children. He discovered the song Little Children. He wanted that to be the next single. And I think at the time they wanted him to record another Lennon McCartney song or something like that. But he stood his ground, and Little Children became a big hit. Same thing with, Jerry Marsden with You'll Never Walk Alone, because they had a number of singles that were fast and they were monster hits. How Do You Do It? And I Like It. And then Jerry Marsden said, I want to do a ballad. So he reached out and did the song from Carousel.
Yeah.
Chose You'll Never Walk Alone, and it became a #1 song.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and they were pitched Hello Little Girl, the Lennon McCartney song. And because Jerry and the Pacemakers turned it down, the Foremost did it. But I'm just saying that the Beatles and Billy J. Kramer and Jerry Marsden all had their own ideas of what to do, and it all proved to be right.
Yeah.
The outcome was always perfect.
So the short film is called If John Lennon Had Left the Beatles in '62. And there's a scene where he's on a bus and he passes by a poster. It says, The Beatles, Greatest Hits Live at the Manchester Apollo, featuring their hits, Mull of Kintyre, Yellow Submarine, Sea Moon, Yesterday, Mary Had a Little Lamb, How Do You Do It, and You're 16. Somebody got really creative.
This is some fictional thing?
Complete fictional thing is, what if John would have quit and the Beatles would have gone on as a trio?
Okay, I'll have to check that out.
It's 24 minutes of your life that you're going to have to dedicate to it.
Okay.
But it's really good acting, and it's basically John's a normalton with a normal job, a normal wife, but he's still alive.
Okay. All right, Fernando, we got to wrap this up. So thanks so much for joining me here, and we'll do this again soon.
This was a total pleasure. Thanks, everyone, and please be nice to me in the comments. I'm sorry about the John bashing.
my viewers, my listeners are cool,
Okay, good. Thanks.
All right. Thanks to all of you for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. And Fernando, we'll talk to you soon.
Have a great day, guy.
Okay.
Take care, man.
Take care.